Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here, and welcome to TEDxBerkeley 2025. My name is Angel Gallegos. I'm one of the TEDxBerkeley co-creators.
And my name is Joy Wilson, and I'm also co-creator for this year, and will be your host.
This year's theme is Highway X. Highways and roads can seem like simple paths, a straight shot from A to B, but no journey is ever that simple. As you go through your path of life, detours emerge, obstacles emerge, and suddenly you're going in a completely wrong direction. But this unpredictability is what encapsulates Highway X. The choices we make, the circumstances that we may or may not know, the moments we have to speed up, slow down, or even throw it in reverse, all of these moments lead us to where we are now. And despite everything, we still keep moving, whether that be forward, back, wherever it may be, it leads us to where we are now and today.
And we want you to take this unique journey to go through all the speakers at TEDxBerkeley 2025 and see what their highway X's of life are like. We want you to take this time to see how they've impacted and influenced our world so you too can reflect on the monumental moments of your life and journey. In addition, I would like to go over some housekeepings. With our event, it's interactive, so we have an open seat policy. With that, there is no going in and through the venue during talks, but you're allowed to go through the talks you're allowed to go into the venue in the between talks. In addition, please take your belongings with you as you may not return to your current seat. In addition, the session will start promptly, so make sure you arrive on time. In addition, there's no talking during the talks, as well as there's no flash photography or videography. In addition, do not eat or drink in the venue, except if it's water. On the topic of technology, please minimize your use so you can respect those around you. If you do need to use technology, please sit at the back of the venue.
Yeah, and please check us out on our social media. We post on Instagram and Facebook. So make sure to give us a like and a follow and just support our team. We'll be posting more things about our speakers, so give that a check. And we'll be hosting a reception as well afterwards at 5:30 to 7 in the Lower Sprout area right in front of Zellerbach. We'll be having like food, beverages. You'll be able to mingle with other attendants and even speak to the speakers themselves. So we definitely want to see you there.
At this time, I'd like to take a moment to perform a land acknowledgement. UC Berkeley sits on the territory of the Chochenyo, the Ohlone-speaking tribe. In addition, we like to pride ourselves in the act of understanding how Native people have a great importance to our community. Moreover, our institution has continued to use and have an occupation of this land since our institution's founding in 1868. Pride in our value of diversity, inclusion, and community, we want you to make sure we recognize our relationship with Native people. This land is rooted in the history of the Ohlone tribe, and we want you to recognize that. In addition, the Native people have continued to thrive and be an important community member in UC Berkeley and the broader Bay Area. And now, we'll take a moment to have an intro into what TEDx is.
From Kenya to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, in slums, in schools, in prisons, and in theaters, every day people gather at TEDx events around the world to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. Today, you are part of a global conversation about our shared future. So what is this TEDx? TEDx is an initiative of the TED Conference, a nonprofit devoted to ideas worth spreading. We grant free licenses to allow TED-like events to spread globally. This event today is based on the TED Conference format and ideals, but is independently organized by your local community. So please make sure to thank the team of volunteers who worked so hard on today's event. It's their ideas, dedication, and time that made it all possible. It's they who booked all the speakers, and the views you'll hear today are, of course, those of those speakers, not necessarily of TEDs. But we hope their talks spark an exciting conversation among you. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for openness and for critical thinking, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you'll take out. And now, on with the show.
Hope you enjoyed that little intro into what TED is and TEDx, and a little bit of background about our event today. It'll be split into 2 sessions. So for session 1, it's laying the tracks. Laying the tracks is going into kind of what it means to take a step back. And it's not always about speed and direction, but being able to lay the tracks ahead of you and be able to understand and rewrite the map of what you're interested in and what kind of things you want to do in the future. And our speakers in this session will be able to talk to you about where they're going in life and how they've been able to take a step back and be able to reevaluate and reimagine what they want to do in the future. So thank you.
I have the honor of introducing our first speaker. He is a photographer of Chinese, Asian, indigenous descent. Through his photographic storytelling, he's able to immerse an audience and see how you can reflect and see your understanding and relationship to Mother Earth. For the past 2 decades, he has built and paddled kayaks, which is a practice of his ancestors, through many projects in the Arctic. Most recently, he has had an amazing award from National Geographic, one of their highest and prestigious, the Eliza Skidmore Award for Outstanding Storytelling. In addition, his work has been published in many publications, such as Vogue and Times. Can we have a please welcome to our first speaker, Keely Yuan.
新年快乐! Happy Year of the Wood Snake, everybody. All right. Oh, you know what? I need a clicker. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about narwhals. Actually, not just narwhals. So this story, like all good stories, begins in the ancient past, 2009. When I'm breezing along the dark blue waters of the Pacific Northwest in my handmade traditional kayak. And it's a beautiful sunny day here in the San Juan Islands of Washington. And I've brought a couple of friends out with me to see the rock stars of these waters, killer whales. And so we're paddling out there, we see the sparkles, we see the orcas, it's a big pot of them. And it is my friend Erin's dream, lifelong dream, to see orcas in the wild, so she's spellbound. And the 3 of us start paddling like cartoon characters through the water, and we stop about 100 yards away like you're supposed to, but the orcas, they haven't moved much. They're just hanging out. So Erin leans in close, gives me a mischievous smile and says, "Hey, let's sing to them." Now I have to admit, at this time, in my 20s, my self-image was more of a tough wilderness guide, you know, and not that of a man who sings to whales. But I actually love singing. And I felt really sheepish, and I didn't join in. But eventually, at some point, right around when they started breaking into the Beatles, I remembered. I remembered something from a story my grandmother used to tell me when I was a child. And in that story, one of the lines was, if you want the whales to visit you, you have to sing to them. So my grandmother was Denai Huchachu, or Siberian native, from Manchuria. And for Nais, orcas are our relatives. So once, a long time ago, the orcas were people, only they had special clothing, kind of like an orca onesie. You could zip it up and then poof, you transform into a killer whale. Now when Erin and Michael started the opening words of, "Hey Jude," I couldn't resist anymore, so I sang and I laughed. I could just feel that song going down my legs, vibrating the skin of my kayak, and going into the water. And moments later, the fins of the orcas turned and they made a direct beeline for us. Time slowed down, and I can remember Erin just shrieking with delight. about something. And I turned just in time to see an orca calf pop its little nose up out of the water right next to me, and then shove the stern of Aaron's kayak. And then I could feel it, because a wave of pressure went under me as something dark darted underneath my kayak, and I could feel it up through my legs, up through the hull of the kayak, and I was enthralled, so I kept on singing, and I have been singing ever since. So anytime I'm around orcas, I let my voice out into the wind, and my orca relatives will come and visit me in my kayak. Every single time I've done it, they have come to visit. And in fact, this summer, I actually finally remembered to record this amazing event, and it happened with beluga whales when I was in the Canadian Arctic. I go there with you. It's all I can do. What's happening? They're such happy whales. You know, that day, that was how I learned that my grandmother knew things, unexplainable things. That it was the beginning of my deeper understanding that the stories that my grandmother told me when I was growing up were far more than just tales. They carry with them a deep knowledge of living, from millennia of living with the land and the sea, and I think maybe that was the moment that my life took a serious new turn. In my 40s, I became a National Geographic photographer, and I started pitching stories that took me to indigenous communities around the world and began to see that there is actually a powerful link between the world's most beautiful places and the people that live in them. In fact, indigenous territories comprise about 40% of all remaining land on Earth and contain more biodiversity than national parks. I want to start in the island nation in the Pacific, in Palau, which is close to the Philippines. And the coral reefs of Palau, they have among the highest biodiversity amongst the world's seas. They are also some of the most resilient to climate change. So the Scripps Oceanographic Institute, which you guys will have heard of over here, tracked changes to the coral and actually found that Palauan reefs actually recover from coral bleaching amazingly fast. Why? Because of the great numbers of healthy fish. And that includes fish like these young reef sharks who are living in the protection of a mangrove lagoon. The indigenous Palauans made history when they were the very first ones to declare their waters a shark sanctuary. Palau is full of magical animal encounters, like this beautiful black-banded sea snake, one of the most venomous and beautiful. This image actually made the cover of the 2023 National Geographic Pictures of the Year. But I don't want to just stay under the ocean. We're going to move to the world's oldest rainforest, Australia's wet tropics. So what's weird is that the wet tropics, which has been government protected for decades, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and yet there, the biodiversity is actually falling. The wet tropics used to be a quilt of different ecosystems, from rainforest to meadows to mangroves. But without human intervention, mature rainforest actually takes over and decreases the biodiversity. And that includes the decline of amazing species like these Muppet velociraptors, the cassowaries. So they are a keystone species, basically essential workers, right? Because they eat and they poop out the seeds of rainforest plants. And without them, 150 species of rainforest plants wouldn't be able to propagate. Like the cassowary, human beings are also essential to the health of the forest. So the wet tropics are the homeland of the Jabugai people, who have been here for tens of thousands of years, possibly as long as 60,000 years. And during that time, they have shaped the landscape around them using a special tool, fire, specifically cultural fire. Cultural burning expert Damien Hunter here, he works here, and his fires are not the fires, the raging fires that you've been seeing in the news that ate LA. No, those are the kinds of the fires that burn during hot, windy weather, right? But Damien waits until the forest and the soil underneath the forest is moist and cool. Cool, slow fires like his are actually forest managers, and they consume the leaf litter like little Roombas of the forest. When Europeans first came to Australia in the late 1700s, they saw fire as a destructive force, a terrible force. And they banned indigenous fire practices, jailing people for burning the forest in ways that they didn't understand. But the unfired lands grew thick with all of this flammable brush, and species like the critically endangered Karanda tree frog started to vanish. And then all the raging wildfires started across Australia. Remember back in 2019 when we saw all those pictures of toasted koalas? By eliminating the burns of indigenous peoples, Australia had made hot burns inevitable. But indigenous fire is returning across the continent. When I started this project, I didn't know. I didn't understand how indigenous peoples had been able to steward the lands so effectively, why they were the world's best conservationists. But I knew the statistics. So I needed to go out into the real world and ask the question, why are indigenous communities so often so good at conservation? And the answer is this crazy long phrase, traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK. So TEK is the knowledge that indigenous peoples acquire by living for centuries in their homelands, crystallized into stories and songs. TEK about an entire community working together to monitor their environment that they live in, right? And one of those forms of TEK is here in Palau. Palau's ancient system of fishery management called BUL, or B-U-L. And this is how it works even today. So one day, a chief hears from a fisherman that there's not a lot of parrotfish left at a certain reef. So the chief, who is a fisherman himself, goes out there, goes free diving, looks around, and oh yeah, there's not a lot of parrotfish here. So the chief declares a BUL, a closure of that reef. That reef gets closed down, and then another area, he opens up another one. And that is how the fishery is kept so healthy. On the other side of the world, there's a system of management that is very different than the Western system that is harder to understand. But in Greenland, the traditional ecological knowledge is actually written down as considered the world's oldest written conservation law. To maintain narwhal populations, for example, TEK says that Inuit, who are the people of North Greenland, must hunt traditionally in calving areas. By paddling out in kayaks by hand and harpooning narwhals by hand instead of using rifles and motorboats. And like the kayak, the dog sled is critical to life in North Greenland. Inuit have depended on Greenland sled dog for centuries. Sled dogs don't need to be barged in from far away. They don't need fossil fuel to run. And in North Greenland, it's the only breed of dog. In fact, they are what we call semi-domesticated, and they're still so similar to wolves that they can't even bark. They only growl or they howl, or I think of it as singing. They sing in chorus, the background song of Greenland. And I love dog sledding. On the ice, accompanied by the rhythmic whooshing of the padding of the dogs running. This is life at its most vibrant, lived in the now. I'm immersed in all the pale sights and the quiet sounds, breathing in that crisp, cold air, punctuated by the occasional whiff of dog farts. Indigenous peoples often fight for goals that take decades to accomplish. And one such place, you guys will be familiar with this, is Northern California. Enormous dams were built on the Klamath River in the early 1900s, and those dams blocked salmon and spread disease. And because the dams slowed the rivers, they created this perfect habitat for a salmon-killing parasite. And that parasite just decimated the salmon population. So just 10 years ago, Ron Reed and his sons would come down and catch 20 salmon in a single day. And they'd make the rounds through the community, through the Karuk and Yurok native community, handing out fish. And they had a lot of happy relatives, right? But by 2020, he wasn't able to catch a single one. 30 years ago, the Klamath peoples started suing the power companies and staging protests to bring down the dams. They sent tribal members to Warren Buffett's annual shareholder meeting. And the billionaire was shamed into the biggest dam removal history project in history. And by summer last year, all the dams are down. Yeah, exactly. It's an amazing success. And this is the Klamath River now, here. This was in August 2024. It looks even nicer than this now. Once that last dam went down, the river returned to its original banks underneath all that water. Within months, the valley looked like it had 150 years ago. Another place where they look generations into the future is the Amazon. So the Amazon rainforest is, of course, almost entirely indigenous land. And one section in Ecuador is particularly impressive. This is the homeland of the Kofan people. And Kofan lands are particularly special because they have the highest biodiversity of any single place, any region on Earth. I spent a month here with Kofan leader Hugo Lucetante. And Hugo was sent away from his village when he was just 10 years old. He'd never left the rainforest before, but the elders who shipped him to Seattle had given him a mission to save his homeland. He would leave his home to gain a Western education, learn multiple languages, no big deal, and return to fight for his people. And what Hugo learned to fight was this industry. Beginning in the 1970s, oil companies began drilling, and the result was massive deforestation and pollution. But the Kofan fought drilling for the next 50 years, aided by leaders like Hugo, and they were so successful that they became role models for the rest of Latin America. So today, we are at a critical moment. I think everyone knows this. The cutting edge realizes now that the formula to protect a place is not to kick out the people living in it, to not evict its indigenous stewards, but instead, they understand that the most beautiful intact lands are beautiful because of their people. But I want you to hear from their voices directly. In Greenland, Mads Ole Christiansen says, "Hunters are seeking balance. That is why we take care of our place. We are the balance. That is why we're hunters." In Australia, Ranger Topsy Gibson says, "Culture of fire is a very big thing. Yeah, fire brings more wallabies down to the beach and other little creatures. It brings back that soft grass for them to eat." Hugo Lucetante says, "If the world truly wants to protect its forests, then efforts like ours need to be recognized for what they are, the hard labor of people who must also feed their families and raise their children." And then finally, there's Lisa Hillman, kissing her husband Leaf on the banks of the newly restored Klamath River. And as she was there celebrating the return of the river, it even smelled like a wild river again. And she said, "This land belongs to you. You belong to this land, so you must care for it." Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Keely. That was amazing. Our next speaker is a global health leader and CEO and founder of the world's largest youth-led cancer nonprofit, Cancer Kids First. Her advocacy has earned her recognition from Prince Harry and Prince Williams in the 2023 Legacy Diana Award. A Harvard student, she works to continue paving the way in medical advocacy. Please welcome Olivia Zane.
My mother might just be the most famous crier on the internet. In July of 2023, I posted my college decision reaction video.
What?
Wow!
The moment that confetti rained down and the words "congratulations" popped up on the screen, my immigrant mom burst into tears, screaming, "Olivia, you got into Harvard!" She then jumped up to hug me as if I had won gold in the Olympics. That video went viral, amassing 25 million views on TikTok. Now, when we walk into grocery stores, Strangers come up and ask her, "Hey, aren't you that crying Harvard mom?" Now, while I'm sure that's not what she wanted to become famous for, in that moment, her tears captured something raw, something universal, a dream realized, a journey that had once felt impossible, made possible. That is the power of social media. It connects people, captures hearts, and shines a light on triumphs and vulnerabilities alike. But while social media was able to capture that exciting moment in my life, it failed to capture one of the hardest periods. In late elementary school, my elementary school teacher and grandfather were diagnosed with cancer. My elementary school teacher was one of my closest confidants, as we spent every day after school together for hours as my mom worked late. Even in middle school, I would still make a point to visit. My grandfather lived in a very rural part of China called Xi'an and had limited treatment access. When I would visit him over the summer, I held his frail hand, urging him to eat. I read him books by his bedside, trying to ease some of the pain. I even decorated his hospital walls with artwork, trying to replace the drab white color with art. A few months later, when I was 7,000 miles away, back in the United States, I drew close to 100 pieces of artwork to try to sell to my classmates to fundraise for his treatments. But despite my best efforts, I only raised a few $100s. It confused me. Cancer didn't seem urgent to those around me. This disease that had taken such an emotional toll on my family went unnoticed by others. As time passed, cancer slowly spread throughout his body, and he passed away. 2 months later, my elementary school teacher passed away from breast cancer. At 13 years old, I'd lost the two most important people in the world to me. Their deaths destroyed me. But in those dark moments of grief, I also found purpose. In 2019, as a freshman in high school, I founded Cancer Kids First, a nonprofit dedicated to honoring my grandfather, an elementary school teacher, and helping other patients and families navigate the uphill battle against cancer. A ragtag group of 3, my officers and I pulled all-nighters crafting a mission and vision for Cancer Kids First. For the first year, our efforts were scrappy. Picture this: scrawny teenagers baking cupcakes to sell at local businesses and running around schools pasting up flyers on bulletin boards to try to get people to volunteer. We toiled for every cent that we could get, and we celebrated every milestone, no matter how small. Then, the pandemic hit, and like every other Gen Z kid, I turned to TikTok. But I didn't just scroll. I studied. What kind of videos made people pause and think after watching? What kind of videos tended to go viral? I enlisted the help of a few fellow high school students who had previously gone viral to make videos for our organization. By posting realistic ways that high school students could get involved and the patients that they'd be impacting, we amassed 4 million views in under a few weeks. Soon enough, resources, volunteers, and donations began pouring in from all corners of the world. Strangers became allies in our fight. It was amazing. 5 years later, at 19 years old, I now lead the world's largest youth-led cancer organization, uniting 40,000 volunteers in 80 countries. I mean, it's crazy if you think about it. We started from this small team of 3 in Virginia, and we've now been able to mobilize 40,000 people in one cause. And how? Because of the power of social media. Now, I'm sure we've all heard the critiques about social media. Raise your hand if you've ever had a parent, teacher, or mentor say to you, "My God, that phone is going to rot your brain." Right. And if you're the parent saying this to your kid, you'll actually be happy to know that there is a little bit of truth to what you're saying. According to a 2023 US Statista survey, teenagers spend an average of 4.8 hours every day on social media. That's a 2-hour increase from years prior. I mean, the government even tried to ban TikTok for an impressive 12 hours. But we don't need to see social media as the villain. It can be a tool, and a transformative one, at solving some of the world's most pressing problems. When I was spending every spare moment in between classes trying to sell artwork to fundraise for my grandfather, I wasn't unsuccessful because I didn't try hard enough. It was because we humans are, well, stupid. Now, before you guys cancel me, let me clarify. The human mind is cognitively limited. In an effort to maximize space and save brain power, we developed cognitive shortcuts. Robin Dunbar is an evolutionary psychologist who developed perhaps one of the most famous cognitive shortcuts, called Dunbar's number. He predicted that humans could only maintain stable relationships with 150 people at a time. That is a mere 50 millionth of the global population. Last semester, I took a class at Harvard called the Economics of Development and Global Health, which connected solving Dunbar's problem with global issues. There, I was introduced to this concept of salience, which explains humans' finite ability to remember and track information. Empathy is intertwined with salience. We care most about what feels personal, because with our limited memory space, we prioritize problems that are facing us and those around us. For example, every 8.5 seconds, a child dies from a treatable disease. It would cost as little as $200 to save one life. But despite this, many individuals instead compete for $500 Taylor Swift concert tickets, instead of donating that money to save a life. And now listen, I'm not hating, I also love Taylor Swift. But the problem lies in the fact that Americans know more about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's relationship than the amount of funding needed to avert millions of deaths globally. And why? Because the faces of those children are not salient to us. High salience creates a large response and resources for global issues, while low salience results in continuous suffering. Social media changes that. It makes global problems personal. Take a look at GoFundMe, for example. Campaigns with personal stories and pictures generate exponentially more funding than those with just statistics. When you post a picture of someone and you assign them a life story, that individual becomes a part of the audience's Dunbar's number, or part of that 150 people whose lives that they can now keep track of. I want you to think about it this way. Let's say you were given two fundraisers to donate to, fundraiser A and fundraiser B. Fundraiser A shares 50% of the world's population is vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Fundraiser B tells you John and Molly recently lost their home in the LA Palisades fire. They're struggling to find shelter and struggling to support their 3-year-old daughter, Penny. Can I get a show of hands of who would rather donate to fundraiser A or fundraiser B? Exactly. And history proves it too. In fact, in the 1980s, the AIDS movement quadrupled global health funding by sharing before and after pictures of patients. Salience works. And social media gives you that opportunity to create salience. You don't need to be famous, and you don't need a big budget. All you need is a story that matters. I've constructed a 3-step process on how you can use social media to change the world, right from your bedroom. Step number 1, identify an issue that you care about. It can be a local problem or one facing populations halfway across the world. You can look to social media for inspiration or reputable news sources like the Wall Street Journal. You can even go into your community and talk to diverse individuals to learn about their life experiences and problems that they might be facing. No matter what issue you choose to tackle, ensure it is something that you genuinely care about and believes needs more attention. Step number 2, study the algorithms and platforms and content creators who have previously gone viral that are in your niche. Think about what kind of timing generates the most engagement, or what hashtags can help boost content. Tools like the TikTok Creative Center and Instagram Explore page can help you analyze these algorithms. Step number 3, create and share. Consider using one person to represent and be the face of the problem that you are trying to solve. Turn data points into individual stories, include pictures, videos, even your own personal voice to connect people to the problem. Social media has revolutionized the way that I advocate for childhood cancer awareness. Over the past few years, I've been able to travel to underserved regions of the world, like Indonesia, where I met patients Stella and Kinayu, 5-year-olds whose parents could hardly afford basic necessities, much less chemotherapy. Or Colombia, where many of the patients there had lost their parents to drug overdoses. For me, real-life examples of cancer are all around me. But for most others who don't witness these problems up front, these devastating effects go unnoticed. Social media bridges this salience gap. By posting video and photo content of the work that my team and I have done abroad, focusing on one country or one patient at a time, Cancer Kids First has raised enough money and attracted enough volunteers to help 10,000 patients in 22 countries. Today, my videos have amassed over 30 million views, bringing attention to childhood cancer and empowering a younger generation of leaders to step up. I want you to think about the problem that keeps you up at night, the problem that you wish you could just shout about until the entire world listened. Social media is your microphone. By using Salience to create social media content, you have the opportunity to make your problem everyone's problem. So, step into the spotlight, say, lights, camera, action, and watch how you too can change the world. Thank you.
Hello, I have the honor of welcoming our next speaker. She is a Nigerian-American woman. She is currently a member of the Haas School of Business and is an MBA candidate. Her story is rooted in resilience, hope, inspiration, and the act of self-renovation. She prides herself in being an active advocate of mental health and lessening the stigma around important conversations. In addition, her journey reflects an act of utilizing technology as well as being involved in multiple artificial intelligence clubs in UC Berkeley. Her journey is an inspiration for you to believe in yourself even through mental health challenges and be an advocate, knowing that your past doesn't hold you back, but yet your future is bright, and the journey ahead is going to be amazing. Please welcome Olachi Tiffany Ito.
Imagine the day you've dreaded the most has finally come. Alone in one of the busiest airports in the world, you hear the sound of gunshots. You scramble. People swarm about you with confusing levels of speed. When people start to scream, the conclusion settles in. You're in the middle of a mass shooting. It was 2014, I was 24 years old and at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. I scrambled as the gunshots rang out. I saw a mother with her young child struggling with their belongings. As she struggled, I faced a decision. Be the Good Samaritan and help this mother and her child to safety, or save myself. It was a choice between cowardice and courage, and I chose courage. I picked up the young boy and started moving towards safety. 22 seconds later, the mother took the child back from me. The problem was, there was no mass shooting. I was having a breakdown in the middle of O'Hare Airport. In my mind, I was saving this child. In her mind, I was taking him. 3 weeks before this, my mother reported me missing. She filed a police report with the Chicago PD and asked for a welfare check, but was denied. I was wandering the streets of Chicago barefoot, disconnected from reality. When I finally resurfaced at O'Hare later, I embodied every stereotype of mental illness. I didn't know it then, but my medication had stopped working. My mental health had become a distant second to my career, my social life, and my aspirations. And now, everything I thought I knew about myself was unraveling. For those 22 seconds with a child in my arms, I was charged with aggravated kidnapping. I had no criminal history. I was working full-time in tech. I volunteered at an art institute. But when my parents pleaded and begged for me to be returned to them, it fell on deaf ears. I was sent to the Cook County Jail, the biggest mental health provider in the United States. And for those 22 seconds of misunderstanding, I would embark on a decades-long journey in resilience, from court battles to a hospital stay, to ultimately becoming a licensed stockbroker and exploring my MBA at a world-class institution. Tonight, I will take you through that journey and how I found that advocacy and faith can give us the essential mechanics to achieve our destiny. The summer before my junior year in high school, my parents took us to Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. My father, ever the philosopher, filled the air with Nigerian proverbs and Shakespeare, and my mother, equally as wise, shared truths about faith and health. These trips weren't just vacations. They were lessons in preparation. And on these trips, my parents shared things I would never forget, saying, "Within yourself lies the cause of whatever will enter into your life." It was my first introduction to the idea of destiny and the notion that life's outcomes are shaped by internal strength and perseverance. For my parents, destiny wasn't an abstract concept, it was a lifeline. They fled the Biafran War, they moved to a new country, taught themselves new languages, put themselves through school. From nothing, they became business owners and health professionals in Maryland and the provider of private education for their 3 kids. Their grit and drive was my blueprint, but I was missing resilience. And I wouldn't understand its role until my life started deviating from the script. I spent 1 year in the Cook County Jail awaiting trial. I was found not guilty by reason of insanity, a full acquittal. I was sent to a hospital for recovery. I recovered in 18 months, but I stayed for 5 years. In this hospital, they did not release you when you became well. They had the ability to immediately discharge you, but they never did for anyone. They released you when they felt they wouldn't be held liable if you relapsed. They promised 30 days of observation. Then 30 days become 60, 60 become 90. They set a discharge date in the future, but it's meaningless and ignored. And if you challenge them in court, they testify against you in full control of the narrative. The circumstances of your arrival were enough to justify your indefinite confinement. The time stretched into years. I was placed on new medication and I stabilized, but stability wasn't enough. You had to perform it. Smile when you were heartbroken, hide when you were fed up with the nightmare. Any indication of anxiety or frustration was enough to set you back months, even years. They created a pathway to freedom connected to the court system, and navigating this system felt like running an endless maze where the walls shifted each time I approached the exit. Years after I left, I joined a healthcare design team as a strategy consultant. Here is the user journey we built and one would have to take to get out of the hospital system. The hospital was amplified with human rights violations, valid abuse cases, and lawsuits in the news. In this warped reality, resilience wasn't optional, it was survival. I lived in a tiny white cement box with no connection to the outside world, no access to the internet, and outside of the local news playing on a flat screen in the day room, my only connection to humanity was a small handheld radio tuned to the BBC World Service at 3 a.m. But here is the important part. I had unlimited time to think, and in that time, I found something unexpected: clarity. I was forced to confront the pain and square root of my demise, and in that pain, I began to see resilience. I saw resilience not as a gift, but as a muscle strengthened through time under tension. I felt the resilience and the tension of hating systems, but needing the people within them. And I burned under the tension of my maturity accelerating beyond my years. There were moments of fleeting beauty. The women on the unit, mostly women of color, would crowd around the flat screen every time the hospital was on the news, cracking unbelievable jokes. I would exercise to a DVD box set literally called Insanity, and I learned how to take ownership of my body, and it changed my life. The women on the unit would read the wedding announcements in the New York Times Sunday paper every week. But the real growth happened in the silence, in the moments where you couldn't run from your own mind. And I couldn't run for 5 years. I came into the system at 24 and I left when I was 30. When I left, the staff said it was the fastest discharge they had ever seen. But I still had a long road ahead. I was sent to a group home, and I would have to fight in court if I wanted to be released to my family. At this point, I had resilience, but I didn't have power. But I didn't fight alone. This is where advocacy can come in to change the defining moments of a life. Alexa is the CEO of NAMI Chicago, a mental health non-for-profit. When I got to the group home, I contacted her, and it was the first time I heard that there were people fighting against the hospital's ways. When I spoke to her, I realized I had a voice and I had rights. Siobhan worked in the group home that I was sent to. The group home had the ability to keep me for an additional 5 years, not because I needed the help, but because they could by law of my discharge. Siobhan presented herself as a resource. She shared insights with me that would help me navigate a system designed to trap me. Beth risked her career to testify on my behalf in court, saying I no longer needed to be in care. This went against the group home's wishes, who employed her as a therapist. But she disagreed, and she saw my context. And when she testified, the group home changed their tune. Patrick, a big law attorney at Reed Smith, took my case pro bono. Despite the many lucrative cases he could fight for, he saw me as a person and not a monetary outcome. And he fought relentlessly until I was able to go home. These people weren't bound to me by obligation. There was nothing in it for them. They didn't reason from self-preservation. They disagreed with the status quo and made a decision based on facts. It reminds me that the world is made of people, not systems. Advocacy is an individual choice, and you can be an excellent advocate when you feel compelled to lend your power when things just don't make sense. This is the antidote to the ills that we see in society today, where every relationship is reduced to dollars or resume bullet points, where we bypass the person and go straight to the gain. When we resist the urge to view life as a series of transactions and fight for what we truly believe in, entire destinies change. In December 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, we won my hearing. I was allowed to go home and restart my life. And if it wasn't for these advocates, I would just be leaving the system this year. Before the hospital, I chased success the way I thought I was supposed to. I measured my self-worth with trophies of external validation, titles, and material success. I downplayed God and I overplayed the universe, all for social credit. But in the hospital, stripped of everything, I wanted to believe there was more to this life. I began to speak to my Creator about my life's events. Up against the Chicago court system, a unique machine, I had no choice but to ask for God's intervention. And when I did, I started to see miracles. Tiny at first, but undeniable. And over 10 years, every small prayer has compounded to massive gains in hope. I was able to envision triumph over defeat. 2 years after I left the system, I started work at T. Rowe Price. I passed my Series 7 in '63 and became a licensed stockbroker. I was promoted twice. I applied to business school and got into Berkeley Haas, where I now pursue my MBA. Every step was improbable. Every step was a miracle. People who knew what had happened to me couldn't believe I was still running. But I wasn't running. I was free-falling. I had to train surrender and trust that my past circumstances wouldn't affect my destiny. And when I did, I found a partner in all of my doubts and a strength that wasn't mine alone. It wasn't religion. It was a personal relationship. It was faith. It was God. So I leave you with this. Resilience isn't built in comfort. It is forged in chaos. And when the walls of your life start to shift and the maze feels endless, take ownership in that fire and let it burn. Keep running. On the other side of chaos lies clarity, and in the hands of faith, even the most fragile destiny can be rebuilt. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alachi, and thank you to all the other speakers of the first session. We will now be opening up to a brief intermission, so make sure you get all your belongings. There'll be some light beverages and snacks outside in the lobby, so we'll see you back at 4:10. Thank you.
It's probably nice to see you Klamath on there. Yes, right on. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, hold on. You know, I got these left over from other talks, you know? Sure, you bet. You want a postcard? Postcard? Oh, yeah. So funny today. Thank you so much. What a pleasure. All right. Thanks. No way. Congratulations. Fantastic. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time for our intermission. I am pleased to allow us to introduce our next session, Session 2, Paving the Way. Paving the Way allows you to see what journeys that may be obstacles, difficulties, and challenges that may hinder your route as you travel through your journey, yet allows you to persevere and endure. Paving the Way is also a way for you to see how these next speakers are able to inspire and bring an understanding of hope, resilience, advocacy, art, and resilience to our future. So please welcome our speakers for our next session for Paving the Way. Before we bring the speakers onto the stage, I would like to introduce our performer for this evening, Cal Jazz Choir. Cal Jazz Choir is an ensemble of jazz a cappella. They're musically in tune and have a great artistic expression through their voices. They are all run by students of UC Berkeley and continue to make music something that is enjoyable and creates a journey of art through listening. Please welcome Cal Jazz Choir onto the stage.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me.
And won't you fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore? You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true, be true. In other words, won't you fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars? Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Oh, in other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, won't you kiss me? Oh, and fill my heart with songs and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true, be true. In other words, I love you, I love you. So won't you fill my soul with song and let me sing forevermore? Because you're all I long for, all I worship and true, be true. In other words, fly me to the moon with you. In other words, let me linger in your view. In other words, tell me that you love me too. Ba-do-ba-dee-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-do-da-da-da-da. Ba-do-ba-dee-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Fly me to the moon, the moon. Skylark, have you anything to say to me? Won't you tell me where my love can be? Is there a meadow in the mist where someone's waiting to be kissed?
Skylark, have you seen a valley green with spring, where my heart can go a journeying over the shadows and the rain to a blossom-covered lane?
And in your lonely flight, haven't you heard the music in the night? Wonderful music,
Faint as a will-o'-the-wisp,
crazy as a loon, sad as a warbler serenading the moon. Oh, Skylark, I don't know if you can find these things, but my heart is riding on your wings. So if you see them anywhere, won't you lead me there? Skylark, won't you lead me there?
Of the wonderful things that you get out of life, there are four. Now there may not be many, but nobody needs any more. Of the many facts making the list alive, truth takes the lead, and to relax, knowing the gist alive, it's truth you need. And the second is honor, and happiness makes number three. When you put them together, you know what the last one must be. Maybe so the truth, honor, and happiness, and one thing more, leaving only wonderful, wonderful love that'll make you fall. Of the wonderful things that you get out of life, there are four. Now there may not be many, but nobody needs any more. Of the many facts making the list alive, truth takes the lead, and to relax, knowing the gist of life, it's truth you need. And the second is honor, and happiness makes number three. When you put them together, you know what the last one must be. But maybe so the truth, honor, and happiness. And one thing more, leaving only wonderful, wonderful love that'll make you fall.
Thank you so much, Cal Jazz Choir. That was beautiful. Now to introduce our first speaker of the second session, a spoken word poet, an educator, and season 15 winner of America's Got Talent. He was born in Stockton, California, and turned his adversity into a career of storytelling. He's won 7 Telly Awards, a Sovas Award, and an Emmy. Please give a warm welcome to Brandon Leak.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all? Oh, man, I come from a black church, so we're going to have to do a little bit better than that. How are y'all? Good. That's what I love to hear. So as mentioned, my name is Brandon Leak. I'm very excited to get the chance to speak with you all today. And so let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, let's go over some poetry rules real quick. Everybody snap for me one time. At poetry events, they encourage you to snap. I hate it, so please don't. I would prefer that we have authentic interaction, like an ooh or an ah, or maybe you laugh a little bit. But I'd rather it be real. Let's not treat this like, grandma's living room with the plastic over the couch. But I am here today to speak with you all about the heart behind our art and the need for artists of our modern times to create entertaining music and art that is not just focused solely on entertainment, but connecting with people in a very real way. And I figure there's no better way to do that than by sharing a poem of mine entitled Puff. So here we go. I have 2 facts for you. 1, I'm 6 feet tall. And 2, love is the most vulnerable experience one will ever have. And you must learn to hold on to it loosely, so when it leaves, it won't exit so painfully. You see, in July of 1996, an angel was brought to this world. Her name, Danielle Marie Gibson, but I only know her as Puff. Her eyes they glimmer like the stars. Her smile is as wide as the universe. She is my world and my sister. I, just 4 years of age, learned what it meant to love selflessly for on days in which my strength is but knee-high, saying her smiling face would make my soul fly. But you see, since March of 1997, I've been ground-bound because she left Earth to go back home amongst the stars, right next to God, and I was left here to manufacture wings out of tears and broken dreams, but I'm still haunted by these nightmares because I have this really creative mind. And at times it designs these alternate realities where she is still here, still alive, and all the things I wish we could have done are played again and again and again. And I'm tired of playing God because I got to come to terms with the fact that my sister is never coming back. And that's the cost of love, right? Caring for someone so much that you can't imagine living life without them, staring at a grave like, sis, how about I trade my 6 feet for yours, but that's not real. And I know I said earlier to hold on to love loosely so when it leaves, it won't exit so painfully. But if this pain and these memories are all that I have left of you, I will never regret these scars from just trying to hold on to you. This was my first poem on America's Got Talent. And my question to you all is, how many of you all in some emotional capacity could relate to the words I just shared in that poem? Replaced it with a mom, a father, grandmother, grandfather. It's a message in which resonates with people around the world. But that's what happens when art is not just senselessly made for the sake of trying to get clicks or get people to garner it, but instead made with real intention and heart behind it to be able to build a bridge from one soul to the next, to let somebody know that they are not alone on the island that they might currently reside on. That is art with heart behind it. So let's talk about this, because there's a few ways in which this works. The first one that I can speak to is activism, or as cornily as I'll put it, artivism. Artivism is the idea that art has always been used as a central figure in being able to advocate for marginalized people around the world. Now, I can't speak for all cultures, but I can speak for mine. When I know black folk, we make art when we are in trials and tribulations, whether it be from the slave fields to modern times, Negro spirituals to hip-hop music. We have done this religiously to connect other people as well as ourselves to something greater, to a hope that resides in us still. When I think about these things, I think about a poem like I Too Am America, Langston Hughes, in which he's talking about how us black folk will one day have a seat at the table of equality here in America. Or a song like Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday, and how beautifully she sang these terrorizing words about black bodies hanging from trees. Or a song like F the Police Coming Straight from the Underground, a brother got it bad 'cause I'm brown. I'm sure most of you know that song. Or a song that took the world by storm in 2020 during our massive protests to qualify ourselves, or I should say advocate for ourselves for equality. and All Right by Kendrick Lamar. These songs became battle cries for people, both people who were standing beside us and those who were actually in the streets doing the work to advocate for change. But then there's another side of this. Unification. Who here has been to a concert? Awesome. Did you know the religious beliefs of the people next to you? Or the political choices, whether or not they had like tofu, avocado toast in the morning, or whatever vegans eat, right? The thing is, I'm very confident you don't, but I know one thing that did matter to you. If they messed up your favorite lyric to that song, right? It's like, you better not mess up this chorus while you are standing next to me while we are singing this song together. And that was a unifying moment between you and them. It did not matter what else was going on in the world at that moment in time. What mattered was that you all experienced the freedom of when art that has heart behind it connects one soul to another, and you all let glee take over. You let glee take yourself to somewhere completely different. And how beautiful is that? And I think about this beautifully with songs like Pharrell Williams' Happy, and how that became a smash hit, and all of a sudden, every kid's favorite song and every adult's biggest nightmare, right? Or a song like We Are the World, and if you're looking for a really funny video, watch when Michael Jackson was listening to the other people make their parts of the song. It's a good watch. But it's not just those. I think about moments in my own personal life, a quick testimony of my own. I started doing poetry after my best friend died my freshman year of college. He drowned in a levee running away from a rival gang, and I needed an outlet. Basketball used to be it, but it didn't do it for me anymore. And in 2014, my senior year, I was running open mics on campus, and I got the chance to open up for my friend's music tour. He told me, come with us to Salem. I had classes, work. I'm like, dog, I can't make it. But if God wants me there, he'll provide me a ticket to get there and an ability to get off work. And God gave me both. So I went. And while at a park in Salem, Oregon, a place I had never been before, I met a woman by the name of Benita. She was there, standing, quietly and awkwardly, and I was like, hey, if I get you to laugh with this poem, you gotta come to the show. I got her to laugh, she came to the show, and she broke down in tears during the middle of my set. I run up to her and ask, are you okay? And she explains to me that she was only at the park so that way she could get away from the courthouse because her ex-boyfriend had just been pled guilty to having abducted her and done some things to her over the course of a week. And she was planning on committing suicide that night. And she told me, Brandon, how did you speak words of hope that caught me? And she is now still alive, and she is a nurse saving lives in Salem, Oregon still to this day. I didn't know what she was going through. All I did was show up with a poem or two about my life experiences that connected me to her. But that's the power of art, when it's wielded in a way that actually has meaning, that has heart behind it. Because art is not just entertainment. Art is literally the way in which we live and breathe. The way our phones are designed, the music we listen to, the shows we consumed, the design of this entire building is a work of art in which we have taken time to cultivate. And how beautiful would our world be if the artists who are helping to push it forward use their voices, use their skills, use their God-given talents to take it to somewhere that is more beautiful than it is today. So in closing, I have a final poem entitled Hope that I would like to do with you all, but it requires a little bit of audience participation. So let's see if y'all are coordinated enough to do this. When I say, when it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides, and then you all say hope. So let's try this. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. All right, so some of y'all was a little off. Let's try that one more time. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. When the world grew dark and skies were gray, God stood beside us to have hope to say that when it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. You see, where I'm from, I seen dreamers deterred as the world referred to us as perturbed. or so I've heard. Cold concrete that conceals crooked cracks that contain black cats, and we ain't talking about felines in the 209. But we are more than struggle stories, more than laden laments. We are the personification of resilience. And it's high time we celebrate the dreams we preserved and spurred to now occur, because we done took our licks, and it's time that we get to the middle of that Tootsie slide, knowing that we will no longer be denied. Because when it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. See, I come from a generation of broken homes. Daddy's gone. No wonder we sprung from crack houses. We've survived fractured lives due to all that we were deprived of. But we had love. But we had hope. And ain't it beautiful to see how these dreams, once nothing more than seeds, have now sprouted to bear beautifully bountiful fruit. And I know it's so easy to carry disdain when all you have ever known is rain. But the forest, it would never complain, knowing that the rain that came sustained the life it held, the fruit it would one day yield. And that rainforest is me. It is you. We together are one. Once nothing more than seeds, now planted and blossoming, so the whole world may one day believe that. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. Because a hope this strong cannot be tamed. A fire burning inside our souls will survive their reign. Because what they thought would be loss has now turned to gain. Because when the world grew dark and skies were gray, God stood beside us to have hope to say that when it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. That when it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. Say it louder now. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. One more time now. When it comes to me and my folk, we lost everything besides. I pray that as we leave here today, no matter the world we may face, you know that there is hope that still lies ahead. And to my artists, let us foster that hope with the art that we create. Thank you.
I'm honored to talk about our next speaker. She's the founder and co-founder and co-executive of Feminist. She's an entrepreneur of a social-first nonprofit organization that aims to merge content creation and social advocacy in our world globally. Please welcome Kai Polanco onto the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I know it's rainy outside, but it is so beautiful to be in community with you. I'm reaching across time and space. The year is 2159, and I come from a future with a message of hope. In my world, we've healed our relationship with the earth. Every being, from the people to the birds, to the trees and the fish, has the fundamental right to exist and thrive. It honestly feels as nice as it sounds. This reality wasn't given to us. It was born from your dreams, your actions, and your collective wisdom. When darkness fell in the 2020s, you didn't comply to the far-right policies. You chose to build bridges instead of walls, to see diversity as strength, to radically reimagine everything. The real revolution came when we realized we didn't need a single ruler. We actually needed everybody to rise up together. When empathy became our compass, wars ended. When joy became sacred, work transformed into passion. Community replaced isolation, and screens gave way to faces. Healing rippled across all over the world. I'm here to tell you that in this utopia, 134 years into the future, exists because of your choices, your hope, and your determination to act now. They create your tomorrow. Hi, My name is Kai Polanco. I'm an activist, creative, co-founder, and co-executive director of Feminist. Today, in 2025, I'm going to share how to find your place in the feminist movement. So first, you got to find your passion and make it your superpower. I want to share a story about how passion becomes purpose. Growing up in Los Angeles as the 5th generation Angelino, I witnessed how my parents transformed their passion for fashion into their very own brand. Garments were designed at our living room table, where future collections were born, and on the weekends we played with sewing machines. My own journey began, these are my fabulous parents. My own journey began at the age of 12 when I picked up my very first camera. Through that camera, I was able to explore the world around me through the lens of and connecting people and the planet. I traveled, I observed, I documented, always trying to understand why society exists the way it does. After graduating from Pratt Institute in New York, I found myself in the fashion industry, just as Instagram was transforming how we all share stories. I was helping brands navigate this new digital landscape, but I definitely felt like my work lacked purpose. But all of that changed when an incredible opportunity fell into my lap. I shadowed the iconic and legendary designer and feminist Dion von Furstenberg. She would talk about how garments could help women become empowered to be in charge of their own lives. And in that moment, I learned that when purpose and passion combine, they can not only coexist, but they can create community to drive meaningful impact. That experience ignited something in me. And in 2020, I built Feminist. You may know us as @Feminist on Instagram, and we reach over 25 million different feminists around the world every month. Think about that number. 25 million different voices, dreams, hopes, stories, all existing on one platform that didn't exist when I was growing up. Through tireless work, triumphs in legislation, threats to our fundamental rights, an incredible moment happened on my journey through Feminist. It was honestly kind of a pinch me if this is real moment. I ended up at a roundtable discussion with then Vice President Kamala Harris. We were discussing the state of reproductive rights in the US. And as I sat there, I thought about all those who fought for my rights before me. And I realized that I became a living embodiment of what they had dreamt for the future. The role I've created for myself, digital advocate, community builder, platform creator, that didn't exist when I was in college. It didn't even have a name. But that's the beauty of following your passion, because sometimes it helps you create something entirely new. Today, I'm using that power to amplify the voices of activists, artists, creators, educators, and change makers from all over the world. Next, identify who you can bring with you. But here's the thing about superpowers. They're amplified when shared. Feminist is not just an organization. It's a collective heartbeat, a shared vision. And that story begins in my college dorm room. Picture this. 2 randomly assigned roommates giggling in the dark at 2 a.m., diving deep into discussion about inequality and dreaming up solutions. That's how I met Aisha Becker Burroughs. She grew up Rastafari in Seattle and offered a completely different perspective to our late night discussions. We didn't just talk, we acted. We built a radio show called The Groove Sesh. We combined soul and funk and reggae. We brought on interviews with different activists. We even had a sex worker who was funding her education on. And all of that time, we were actually building a pretty inclusive platform. We just didn't even know it yet. Fast forward to 2020. I was on board the @Feminist roller coaster when we went from 1 million followers to 6 million followers entirely organically in 6 months. It was wild, honestly. It was definitely because of people were at home and they were feeling like their voice wasn't heard, and people were eager to listen and to learn. At this time, on this exponential growth, I knew exactly the person to call to jump on this roller coaster with me. Aisha had already carved her own path in media and never lost her passion for social justice. The stars aligned and we joined forces. Together, we looked at the future of feminists and we said, if Ms. Magazine could be launched today, where would it exist? Fun fact, I actually got to ask Gloria Steinem this question in her living room. She did say, she didn't quite say Instagram, but she did say social media seems like the future and the forefront of feminist discourse. I love to hear it, honestly. What makes @Feminist unique is its kaleidoscope of voices. In one scroll, you'll learn from a climate warrior in the Amazon to a trans lawyer fighting for their rights in the Supreme Court, and maybe laugh at an illustration about mansplaining. This isn't random. This is intentionally designed to keep our audience hopeful and engaged. We built this platform on 4 key pillars. We must be 1, intersectional, 2, international, 3, intergenerational, and 4, intentional. Here's what I've learned. The smartest person in the room is not an individual. It's the room itself. Our movement has the power because it's not built on one single grand voice. It's built on a diverse chorus of millions of different experiences and shared truths and collective wisdom. When you're thinking about who to bring with you on your new journey or your ride, look for the people who challenge your perspective, the people who bring different perspectives to the table, and the people who amplify your superpower. Because true change, it happens in between the spaces of our differences. Step 3, share your abundance. What sets our movement apart in 2025 is a fundamental shift in thinking. We've learned that gatekeeping serves no one. When you truly understand how deeply interconnected our liberation is, it seems so meaningless to keep resources or knowledge from other people. Our strength lies in sharing and lifting each other up. Let me share a powerful example. In 2022, we witnessed a seismic shift in American history when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. In that moment of crisis, feminists decided, we're going to open our gates wide open. Our platform became a megaphone for the different activists on the ground, the local abortion providers, the lawyers trying to navigate the legal implications of what was happening. We hosted Instagram Lives with protesters all across the US, representatives standing firmly for bodily autonomy. And the response was extraordinary. We mobilized our community to raise $50,000 for abortion access in just 48 hours. We created a comprehensive reproductive rights toolkit that's been used by thousands and has helped people navigate care and show up and how to take action. And, this wasn't just activism. This was actually an abundance in action. Abundance isn't just about money or resources. It's about recognizing what you uniquely bring to the table and sharing it generously. Look around this room. Some of you might be thinking, what do I have to offer? But abundance shows up in unexpected ways. For example, are you the person with the juiciest gossip? That's abundance. You can use that to share critical information and spread awareness. Perhaps you're the eternal optimist. That's also abundance. Our movement desperately needs people with hope and joy to sustain us. Perhaps you're the artist who can capture the movement in a single image, or the writer who can write to our collective grief. Your abundance might not look like mine, but that's exactly the point. The power of our movement lies not in a single grand gesture, but in millions of small acts of sharing, teaching, and lifting each other up. When we each identify and share our unique abundance, our movement becomes unstoppable. A movement where every gift, every talent, every voice contributes to our collective liberation. So, what's your abundance, and how will you share it? Step 4, You have to take action. So, as Jane Goodall once said, think globally, act locally. These words have become a compass for meaningful change. When we look at what's directly in front of us, we can take action and create ripples that affect all movements across the world. It's kind of wild how many DMs I get every single day about different feminists trying to fight for issues that are definitely happening here in our own home. What might be a protest for to end femicides in Istanbul echoes a protest in Mexico City for the very same thing. A climate victory by the youth in Montana inspires youth climate activists in Leeds of United Kingdom. Our impact has far reach. Our local actions aren't just local anymore. They're threads in a global tapestry of change. But this connection is not just geographical. It spans time itself. Take the fight for reproductive rights. This is an age-old fight that has been going on before us. And sometimes the solutions exist in those that come before us. Honestly, it's not even sometimes. All the solutions exist in the wisdom of those who came before us. When we bridge this gap between generations, we don't just honor our past, we fuel our future. Remember that vision of the future I had explained in the very beginning? The one about where empathy became the foundation of our society? That future begins with how we act today. Right here in our own communities. It starts when we let that force deep inside of us, the one that connects our hearts to our minds, guide our actions. Every act of care is an act of revolution. Whether you're supporting a local clinic or teaching an elder about digital literacy, you're taking action, and you're simply being there. You're part of this global transformation. That revolution isn't just about resistance. It's about seemingly small acts of radical care, about healing, about showing up for each other, about lifting each other up. Remember, every act of care is an act of revolution. Now, hi, it's me, your feminist from the future. Before I head back, I want you to understand something very profound. Those mutual aid networks you're building, the ones where you're sharing everything from how to protect your community against ICE, those calico critters defeating the patriarchy, or sharing your latest skincare routine, those become your systems of care. And that hot take that you were thinking about posting, the one about how trad wives were created by conservatives to control women, that one, definitely post it. Because in my time, those become historical treasures. But seriously, you are the ancestors of tomorrow's movement. Future scholars will look back at your social feeds and think, this is where it all began. No pressure, right? The future is calling us to be brave stewards of our own collective liberation. Your superpowers, your unique abundance, your capacity for care, they all matter more than you know. Even when you send your friends memes about resistance at 3 a.m., that actually also matters too. So I ask you, one final time, what will you contribute to our shared future? I'll see you in the future. We build together. And I promise it's worth every bit of action you're about to take. Thank you, Berkeley.
Thank you so much, Kai. Our next speaker is an entertainment executive, producer, and speaker. As Executive Vice President at Cultural Agency, he leads multicultural PR and global outreach. Previously, as Executive Vice President at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, he oversaw global outreach and led to the shaping of events like the Oscars and the Governor's Awards. Please welcome Sean Finney.
Hello, 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 Berkeley. But don't be rude, you can say it back. Hello, Berkeley. Hello. Let's do it one more time. Hello, Berkeley. Hello. My name is Sean Finney, and I just want to start this off with a really simple question, y'all, and I don't want you to think too deep about it. The question is, where were you before you were born? It's a mystery, isn't it? What happens after you die? It's another mystery. I mean, honestly, life is a mystery, and if you slow the word mystery down, it becomes my story, and that's kind of what we're all living. Well, we're not all living my story, we're living our story, the story we tell ourselves, about what we can do, be, and have, and how far we can take this thing called life. And we measure it all up, typically by one word: success. Success. What does it mean to be successful? For example, how many of you have ever asked the question, what am I doing with my life? If you've texted, tweeted it, journaled it, raise your hand like you have on good deodorant. Good deodorant? Okay. We ask the question because we believe inherently that our life is not successful. But what does it mean to be successful? How do we quantify success? And most importantly, because success has so many authors, who gets to determine what success is? You do. You get to determine what success is. We're in this space consistently where we're always trying to redefine it. And I'm here to offer a simple yet slightly uncomfortable perspective. And that is, if you are consistently looking for success outside of yourself, if you find yourself bending and folding every time the world redefines success around you, or you feel deflated when your internal dialogue and metric of success does not match your external dialogue and metric of success, then friends, I love you so much and I know we're new friends, but it's you. You're the problem. But you're also the solution. Life is weird, and it's been weird these last couple of weeks. We're not going to say why, but it's been weird. And adulting is odd. I actually wanted to name my talk or talk about like the survivor's guide to adulting, but I realized I'm still surviving myself, and I don't know that it would have been safe to bring you along the journey, but what I can share are just some specifics that I'm working towards on my own. One, the power, the ability, and the permission I give myself to unlearn. Unlearn what I can be, do, and have by X time, by this time, by doing this or that thing, and also the power to redefine. Redefine words, redefine terms, redefine what success is, and also redefine phrases. How many of us have heard the phrase, be humble? Yeah? Yeah. Be humble. We're expected to be bold, be brilliant, go in the room and negotiate for our lives and for our jobs and for everything else, but be humble. But when's the last time you've heard the definition of be humble? Having or showing a low estimate of one's own importance, of low social, political, or administrative rank. I know we're fast friends, but something tells me that this might not quite be the definition of success in being humble, and that's what success is. The power to redefine it anytime, every time, all the time. Success does not always feel like success. Success sometimes feels like you're losing. Success also feels like leaving the good to grasp the greater. And this is what I learned early on in my career. I started off as a singer, songwriter. I've written hundreds of songs, recorded hundreds of songs. I have my videos on MTV, VH1. I performed on BET, though that was not my best performance. I survived off of gummy bears and tuna fish. I exhausted all of my friends' spare rooms and their couches and had crazy jobs like delivering newspapers at 3 a.m. in Queens to be able to do it. So in 2013, when I moved to Los Angeles, within 6 months of me being there, I got offered a recording contract. Similar to sports, I got drafted by a team, y'all. Success. This is what it looks like. Well, until we reviewed the terms and conditions of said contract, and at that time realized that the creative control I was not going to be able to have, my identity would be up to the corporation, and everything that I had worked towards at that time was like not successful at all. And it's weird that I could have all of this success, but none of it actually belonged to me. I was advised by the attorney that I was working with to say no to the contract. Now, this sounds really bold and like affirming. I did not want to say no. Let me be very clear. I wanted to say yes 110%, but I ultimately ended up saying no. The day after I said no, my car that was already being shipped here from New York City arrived in Los Angeles. My 1998 Toyota Camry. Situations and circumstances would have me living in this car. 4 months. LA Fitness became my sanctuary and my gym. And I became professional at pretending like everything was cool and everything was all right. This was my first foray into understanding no can sometimes be success. my first foray into really understanding that success is this confined and construct that we put on ourselves. And also, most importantly, that success can change at any time. And the no forced me to not only ask what I wanted, but why I wanted it to begin with and what I was willing to release in order to attain it. I wasn't willing to release myself at that time. But this is a lesson that I would carry into my next journey, the Oscars. I started off as the temp assistant to the CEO of the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences. Fancy, huh? I spent most of my time trying to understand what my job was and the other time just trying to survive. In the film community, there was a big thing that happened called Oscars So White. Not sure if you've heard of that hashtag, but it really looked at the difference of representation within the organization. There was a void. I felt I had value. So what did I do? I created a job description, proposed it, submitted it, and I was promoted into that position. What's interesting about that, because no one told me that I could. No one also told me that I couldn't. And I think that that's where we get lost. And sometimes in success, we think that it's a road that we all have to see clear, and it's a road that you have to barricade through. Within a couple of years of me being there, I was promoted to Executive Vice President, Global Outreach and Awards Administration. I became the youngest executive ever at the time on the senior team, the only black man ever appointed to said position, and I was able to make impactful change. I was able to promote individuals within the organization that I knew, that I worked with, who deserved it. I was able to add impactful strategies and work with the team. And most importantly, I was able to hire people that reflected the world. This is success. This is what it looks like. I mean, I'm on all of these covers, y'all. Y'all gotta give it up. Success. I was there for about a decade. And as things would have it, we had a new leader that came into the organization. The new leader had different understandings of values and success. Didn't quite match up to mine. So after 10 years, it was time to jump again. It was time to redefine success all over again. But at this point, we got to get really careful, y'all, because sometimes it's easy to look at our own success through the perception of other people. We're living it. We're in it. We're absorbing it. We're excited by it. I'm proud of it. And we can't be identified by it. And I would go home and I would be like, it's me. I'm clearly the problem here. And I realized the problem was me identifying myself to something outside of myself and not really working within myself in the parameters that I have. So I jumped. Where did I jump to? Well, nowhere. I didn't have a job when I jumped. But when I jumped, 6 months, about a week later, we went into a strike for 6 months. 6 months, I would be sitting, resting, releasing, resetting. Had to move from my apartment, burn through my savings. At this point, I had reached the pinnacle and the height of a lot of success. And it was time to find it again. I consulted, I worked with some filmmakers, I worked with studios. I hosted a show on LA Times. I literally did anything and everything. And then a really good friend of mine, somebody whose work I 100% respect, was like, it's time for us to take a step in culture, time for us to take a step and bet on ourselves. And we launched the Cultural Agency, working with film, TV, working across all different brands around audience engagement and around really being able to continue to determine what success means on our own accord. So how do we redefine success? Well, first we gotta ask ourselves, what does success mean to us, not the world? And then separately, what are we willing to do? For me, I had to return back to who I was before the world starts to close us in and box us in. I had to reclaim everything that I gave away when I was broken and restore the power, my natural inheritance that I have, that you have, that we all have. And from that perspective, expand. A dream realized can be a dream reimagined, and a dream reimagined can be a dream redefined at any given time. It's you. You're the solution. You always have been, and you always will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sean. And last but not least, our final speaker for the night. He's a story that defies all odds, Suffering a spinal cord injury while playing men's rugby for the UC Berkeley team, he defies all odds as a keynote speaker, speaking for major organizations like Meta, Visa, and Samsung. Please welcome to the stage, Robert Paylor.
That was awesome. Thank you. My name is Robert Paylor, and by definition, I'm a quadriplegic. I have paralysis in all 4 extremities of my body. I've spent every day of the last 7.5 years in a wheelchair, and when you look at me, the challenges that I face every day are kind of obvious. You might be thinking, gosh, how does this guy even get up out of bed in the morning? Roll the clock back when you got up today, and imagine just getting dressed if you couldn't stand up and you couldn't move your legs. Some of you might be thinking, man, I wonder how nice that handicap parking must be, or what's it like to be able to skip the line at Disneyland, because like there's perks, it's not all bad, right? Jokes aside, my challenges present themselves visually. What you see is my reality, and I have to deal with that reality every second of every day. But for most of us, others can't see what we go through. The adversity, those desires, they lie within us, and usually nobody has any clue that it's even going on. But just like my challenges, we all have to deal with them every second of every day. So I want you to think, what paralyzes you? What paralyzes you, not in a physical sense, but what paralyzes you mentally or emotionally? What stops you from being your best? Maybe most simply put, what challenges you? When you have something, keep it in mind as I share with you my life's greatest challenge and the things I've learned in these last 7.5 years to overcome this challenge. I hope it's useful to you so we can all overcome those things that paralyze us. We can overcome whatever life throws our way. Let me take you back to May 6, 2017 in Santa Clara, California. It's the day of the Collegiate Rugby National Championship, and I didn't know it then, but I will forever remember this day better than any day in my life. I wake up, and I'm a starter for the #1 team in the nation, getting ready to compete for a national championship. Starting as a sophomore for a team of this caliber, in a game of this caliber, wasn't an easy or common thing to do. As we prepared to start this game, we won the coin toss, and we decided that we wanted to kick the ball off. We wanted to hit him first. So we all line up. Referee raises his arm, he blows his whistle. I'm sprinting down that field. It's national championship time. Let's go, Robert. Give it everything you've got. Now, a moment later in this game, I'm competing in a mall, which is when the bigger guys, we group together in a single unit, and then we push to advance the ball. It's a boiler room. It's where the big guys thrive. And I was a big guy. This is my moment. We're just 5 meters out from scoring this thing. I am practically drooling here on this field thinking, let's go, Rob, drive this thing in. And as I do that, the opposing players, they start making these illegal moves. Referee's not calling anything. I get pressure from the side, an arm lock around my neck that's pinning my chin down to my chest, and I get illegally rowed all the way down to the ground until I close my eyes, I grip my teeth, and then snap. My face slams against my chest, and I immediately can't feel or move anything below my neck. I'm lying there, screaming. You can see the whites of my teeth as I scream in horror, doing everything I can to get up, but I can't move anything. My trainers and my doctors, they come over trying to assess the situation, and they're saying, Robert, can you feel this? Robert, can you move anything? My answer is just no, nothing. I'm stretchered off the field and rushed over to the hospital, where we take a series of medical imaging, all to have my doctor come back, and he tells me the worst thing I could have heard. He says, Robert, your injury is bad, really bad. And the reality is, you will never walk again. You will never move your hands. And we're going to do our best so that one day you can do something like pick up a piece of pizza and bring it to your face. And if you can do that, you made it. If you can just feed yourself, you beat all the odds. It was in that moment that the fight for my life began. After a spinal fusion surgery, I couldn't swallow anything, which means I couldn't eat or drink. I had to lay back helplessly and watch as my body withered away in front of my eyes. I lost 60 pounds in 1 month. Now on day 2, I contracted pneumonia, which is dangerous for anybody, right? But was particularly dangerous for me because I couldn't cough. We had my mom, my nurses, my respiratory therapist slamming down on my chest. They're doing everything they can do to move this mucus out of my lungs just so I can breathe. I was told I might not even survive. I wasn't doing well, but I got through it. And once I was medically stabilized, we started thinking about that rehabilitation process. And I made the commitment that I was going to give absolutely everything I can give to get everything I can get out of this recovery. It was 8 to 9 hours of very intense rehabilitation a day. This is the hardest I've ever worked at something in my life. But in the coming months, I went from no motion at all to where I could twitch a finger and twitch a toe, to where a year later, I was able to get up out of my wheelchair, into my walker on my own, and I walked out of those hospital doors. I did the impossible, and fast forward a year after that, I returned back to UC Berkeley. 2 years after that, I graduated with my degree from the Haas School of Business. In August of 2021, I stood up on my own 2 feet, and I received my diploma from the #1 public university in the world, Go Bears, in November. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In November of 2023, I got married to the love of my life who's here backstage supporting me today, and I did all this while continuing my rehab to where I can now stand up out of my wheelchair, into my walker. I can walk up to 400 yards. Oh, thank you again. I've been at this for 2,828 days. So this journey's long, and it's difficult, and it's not over yet, but I'm making progress. Like I said, this is my challenge, but we all have challenges that we face in our lives. There's 2 things I want to walk through today that have helped me to overcome quadriplegia that we can all use to overcome those things that paralyze us mentally or emotionally. The first thing I want to talk about is to control your mindset. And how do we do that? Well, first, I think you got to have a mental diet. We all understand the physical diet, right? It's nasty in, nasty out, or if we eat well, our bodies perform better. I think the same thing goes for our minds. The more we take in negative information, or we have negative interactions throughout a day, the more negative we will be as people, the less able we are to take on our challenges. Just as the more positive information we take in and positive interactions we have throughout a day, the more positive we will be as people, the more able we are to take on our challenges. On the mental diet, it's very intentional. It's something we keep track of. So when I ask you, what fuels your mental diet? We should be able to answer that question. We should point to things that we do on a day-to-day basis that gives ourselves that positivity that we need. So I encourage you, talk to those people you enjoy talking to. Do those little things that feed you with positivity. Do them every day. Make it a part of your routine. As we do these things over time, we become more positive people, and we become more in control of our mindsets. Just as we feed our bodies to optimally perform, we have to feed our minds to take on life's challenges. Now, the second thing I want to encourage us to do to help us control our mindsets is to focus on the controllables. Now, we as humans have this limited capacity of what we can focus on at one given moment. So the more we focus on things that we can't do anything about, the things that we can't control, the less we can focus on the things that we do have, the things that make us better, those things that are within our control. This was a real challenge for me in my recovery. I am not in this wheelchair today because of an accident. No, it was because of the actions of another player on this field to wrench me down illegally by my neck that I am in this wheelchair today, and I have been fighting to get out of it ever since. And you can bet, when I was looking at pictures and videos of someone driving my skull into the turf and causing all of this, I wanted to be angry, and I wanted to hate this person. This guy's never reached out to me. 2,828 days later, he has never said he's sorry. But I forgive him whether he's sorry or not. because I realized the more hate I gave to this person, the more power I gave to him, and the less power I had for myself. It wasn't until I made that real, deliberate decision to forgive him that I could finally start being relieved from all that animosity. And I'll be honest, it was a journey. And that's not a type of hate I could release by just saying a few words. But as time went on, I stayed on that path of forgiveness. And if I got off of it, I got right back on. I'd say, I forgive him and I wish him well. I forgive him and I wish him well. And as I said those words, and time went on, that hatred slowly went down. The animosity eventually vanished to where here I am today, completely freed from all that because I chose to focus on the controllables, because I chose to control my mindset. You want my advice? If you can't control a situation, don't let it control you. Forgive others. Forgive yourself. Learn to slowly let go of the uncontrollable situations in your life. Look forward, never turn back. Now, the second principle I want to discuss to help us overcome what paralyzes us is to practice perspective. First, let's practice perspective in the little things, which is so important because it helps us to realize our victories, no matter how small they are. I can't even tell you how happy I was when I could wiggle my toes for the first time. Oh man, for 6 weeks I was staring at these things trying to get them to move, and I was just getting nothing. That one special day, when I could get just a flicker of movement out of one of my toes, was one of the happiest moments of my life. Now, if I were to ask you to all start wiggling your toes right now, this place isn't going to erupt with glee, right? And it's obvious. It's because I lost that ability. I lost a lot of things, and I started realizing just how much I took for granted. You know, there's this saying that you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. I think that's a horrible way to live. Why should we wait to lose something before we start showing appreciation for it? Let's take inventory of everything that we have right now. Let's be grateful for everything that we have right now, and most importantly, let's use everything that we have right now. Now, the final way I want to encourage us to practice perspective is to do it in others' experiences. You know, I actually have a lot of down moments, and there's a lot of times I look around, I see a lot of seemingly able-bodied people who are walking, doing something I've worked so hard to be able to achieve, and I'm just not quite there yet. I need to pick me up. So I'll get on my phone, and I don't look up videos of puppies and rainbows, no. I'll look up cancer patients, complete quadriplegics, veterans who come back from war without limbs, people who are in terrible situations, a situation nobody should ever have to go through. But I look at them, explain how they make their lives happen every day, a lot of times with a smile on their face, and I just think, remind me not to complain about anything ever again. You know, there's this saying that I use when things get tough, and I need that quick perspective shift, and I hope you can all start using it too. When adversity strikes us, I want us to think, compared to what? So when we say, oh man, I'm so tired, but compared to what? There's a lot that I'm going through right now, but compared to what? There's a lot that I can do, and there's a lot that I do have. That statement is not meant to dismiss our challenges. I think it's very unhealthy if we dismiss our challenges. If we do that, it just ignores it. The challenge will never go away. What that statement is meant to do is put our challenges into perspective. It helps us realize that what we go through is overcomable. There is so much that we can achieve. The reality is, there are millions of people in this world who would rather be in our situation than their own. That's perspective. Give me one final moment, please. Allow me this one final thought. Maybe what happened to me on May 6th of 2017 is not the worst thing that ever happened to me. There's no doubt that if I didn't get hurt, my life would have had its share of joy and success, but I don't think there's any way that I would have the meaning that I find in my life now. My life's purpose is so significant because I now have an ability and a desire to make a positive impact on the lives of others. I have something I wake up to every single day, and I think this goal is worth fighting for. This challenge is worth giving everything I have to overcome. If we can draw upon what I've laid out today to control our mindsets and practice perspective, then we can all access that purpose in our lives. And there is no challenge too great for us to overcome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Go Bears. I had to sneak it in there. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for your inspiring talk. I'd also like to take this time to thank you all for showing up today because this event wouldn't happen without you. I hope you enjoyed the talk. In addition, I would like to give thanks to our sponsors for today. Moreover, I would love for you all to follow our social media page so you can keep up to date with TEDxBerkeley 2026. In addition, as mentioned earlier today, we will be having a reception after this event, so please come and enjoy some amazing refreshments as well as mingle with speakers.
I want to say a huge thank you to all our student volunteers. They make today possible, and this wouldn't have happened without them. And a huge thank you to Elizabeth and Colleen that are part of the Student Financial Aid and Scholarship Office. Huge thank you to you guys. Thank you to Sophia, our amazing stage manager, Amy, our event manager at Zellerbach, and finally, a huge thank you to our team. Amy, Milena, Jenny, Brandon, Elena, Tyne, Emmanuel, Hazel, Lily, Maggie, Adia, Avi, Gwen, Justin, Sam, Shreya, Sky, Yipsara, and Faith.
And a big thank you to our curators, Angel and Joy, and our advisor, Renee. And on behalf of TEDxBerkeley, thank you.
Make sure to come out to the reception afterwards at Lower Sproul. There'll be food, you can talk to the speakers. But yeah, thank you guys so much for everything. Really appreciate it.